Hi everyone, I'm going to go through your steps to success for A-Level Politics. So we're going to understand how to answer your exams for your A-Level Politics, and we're doing it because there's different types of questions which require different skills, and you need to know these skills and understand how to answer the questions, and that's going to allow you to succeed. So just a quick overview of your assessments. You've got your paper 1, which is the UK. It's 2 hours, 77 marks, and 33 and a third of your qualification. Paper 2 is the government and politics of the USA, as well as comparing the USA to the UK. And paper 3 is your political ideas or political ideologies, and that's again 2 hours, 77 marks, which is even spread across all of the papers. So the assessment objectives for the course is set by Ofqual, and it's the same across all A-Level Politics specifications and across all exam boards. And these will measure how you've achieved the following assessment objectives. So AO1, AO2, and AO3. AO1 is you demonstrating your knowledge and understanding of political institutions, processes, concepts, theories, and issues. AO2 is for you to analyse aspects of political and political information, including in relation to parallels, connections, similarities, and differences. And AO3 is evaluate aspects of politics and political information, including to construct arguments and make substantiated judgments and draw conclusions. So you've got 40 minutes for each section of the paper. If you get extra time, that's 50. And you're expected to demonstrate good use of political vocabulary, as well as awareness of how the political systems work. Those reaching higher levels will use a range of evidence across the paper. It's not just current affairs, it's things that have happened in the past. For example, Clinton and Reagan are as valid as Trump and Obama. Thatcher and Blair are as valid as May and Johnson. And you should be able to look to establish a pattern to compare historical norms with current situations. So section A of the papers is for you to analyse and evaluate 3 ways in which, or 3 factors, or 3 arguments. These are the 9-mark questions in which you are required to explain and analyse different political institutions, processes, concepts, theories, and issues as prescribed in this specification. You are required to develop and substantiate at least 3 points in a structured and analytical answer, making use of appropriate political vocabulary and using examples to substantiate your answer throughout. So your 9-mark questions, you must answer all 3 questions, which means you spend roughly around 13 minutes per question. You should have 3 paragraphs, each with well-selected and substantially different arguments or different points. You do not need to introduce or conclude. And inside each paragraph, you're expected to make a clear point and explain it with specific supporting evidence. You should aim for 2 examples in each paragraph. You must analyse the significance of each point in relation to the answer. For example, this is significant because, or this is proved significant because. And when you're doing paper 2, your US 9 markers must include the rational, cultural, and structural approaches to compare the UK with the US. And there's an example of what a 9-marker would look like. Explain and analyse 3 ways in which judicial independence is upheld in the UK. Section B. You need to analyse, evaluate, and compare the arguments being made in the above extracts. So this is a 25-mark extract-based question, which requires you to comprehend and interpret the argument or arguments contained in political information, using your knowledge, your understanding of the issue to analyse and evaluate the arguments that have been put forward. It should be a balanced argument with a sustained line of reasoning, which leads to then a reasoned conclusion communicated with relevance, clarity, and coherence. And the political information used in your exams may take the form of publications, government publications, newspaper extracts, manifestos, visual material, and data. So you will get 1 or 2 extracts, and you need to look at that, and you need to give a limited discussion of provenance in the introduction. It does need to be included in there. It's not history, so you don't need to give detailed analysis of the provenance, but you need to mention it. And in paper 2, you are not expected to draw the information related to the UK by way of comparison, but you can if it's useful. But in paper 3, you must name on the core key thinkers that you've studied. You shouldn't feel to force to draw on all of them. You may draw on certain ones of them or other individuals. Focus on the extract, but do not copy out its argument. It's not an essay. You're looking at the points in there to compare and contrast. You need to have mini conclusions and precise evidence. So you might get that from that extract, but also if you have a knowledge of that behind and going into it, then it's better for you. Do not focus on what the author fails to mention in the extract. You might mention it in passing, and do not judge the author on this. Otherwise, obviously, lest you be judged. Now, when it comes to these extract questions, if you've got 2 extracts, then that's probably going to work better in your favour because they are generally 2 opposing arguments in the extract. So one will say one argument and one will say the opposite of that argument in 2 different extracts. So they give you the ability to be able to compare the 2 arguments because they both say the opposite thing. So they're better for you, but you're not always guaranteed to get 2. Now, when you're reading through the question, I want you to plan. Read the extracts carefully, annotate them, and then consider who is the author and what is the publication, what is the ideological perspective. For example, is it New Right Conservative, or Third Way Socialist, or Right Wing Conservative, or Corbynite Labour? Is it a left-wing paper? And can you link it to the purpose or context that you need? When was it written? What is the context? Again, is it to do with Enlightenment or Industrial Revolution or the fall of Theresa May, or is after following Trump's victory? You might be given the date. So if you've good knowledge of date, then that's going to work in your favour. What is the purpose of the source? Is it to inform, educate, promote revolution, persuade and influence a group? For example, Burke dissuades a revolution in England. Is the BBC as impartial as it says it's going to be? It should be, and it's in national news. So identify and highlight the argument in the source. You should be looking for 4 arguments within the source, 2 on each side. Look out for any arguments that complement and contrast each other. Draw a line linking them so you remember to compare them in your planning. This is on your annotation. And this can be easily done when you're comparing 2 articles, which makes it easier for you. Identify the opinion of the source and highlight it so you can constantly refer back to that. And bring in your knowledge from all 3 papers. Just because it's paper 1 on the UK does not mean you can't bring any paper 3 ideologies or even some parts of paper 2 into the answer. Okay, you can use these to support or counter the arguments. So the political stance of newspapers is quite useful for provenance. You've got the centre of the political compass, you've got left wing and you've got right wing. The Guardian is left wing, and then you've got them moving closer to the centre. Okay, the Times, Telegraph, Sun, Daily Express, and the Daily Mail. They are all there. This PowerPoint is available to you on Google Classroom too, so you can read through each of them. And you can see how in the 2017 election they endorsed various different parties. So now you've done your planning and you've looked at the provenance, you need to start writing. In your introduction, you need to include provenance, and you need to outline the focus of the extract as related to the question and the key argument involves, and a brief comment on the provenance of the source. You need to be assertive and state where you are going to go with your argument. Then you get to the main body. You should have a paragraph for each of the 4 arguments you've selected from the source. This should ideally be 2 from each side. Do not base them around your points of view, only what is in the extract. And remember, if this is a paper 3 extract, ideologies, you need to refer it to the key thinkers you've studied. Not all of them, and you can go beyond the key 5, but you need to make sure you link it to at least 1 or 2 of them from the 5 that we study. You can direct reference the source if it's necessary. Keep your quotes short to a few words, or paraphrase to save you copying out the information that's already there. So you will need to point and evidence. So to point, you'll outline the argument. For example, the Electoral College means that the most popular candidate can lose an election. Develop that point with specific evidence to support your points. So, for example, the Electoral College can be criticised for being undemocratic. On 4 occasions, the presidential candidate who has won the popular vote has lost the election. This happened twice in the last 5 elections. In 2000, Al Gore won more votes than Bush, and in 2016, Hillary Clinton won 3 million more votes than Trump, yet they both lost. Then you need to put an evaluation inside each paragraph, which is a mini conclusion, to consider the validity or strength of the point you've made. Weigh up the arguments above, reach a judgment about the validity of the argument made in the extract. For example, this point presents a huge challenge to America, as it considered itself the home of democracy. Yet, its electoral system does not represent the views of the majority of voters. 2 electoral failures in 5 attempts surely represents a clear case for reform. And then once you've done those paragraphs, you need to reach a conclusion that clearly focuses on the issue of the question. It doesn't matter what view is reached, so long as your position is supported by your arguments and examples. If you only use the source and do not come up with your own arguments, you'll be limited to 10 marks out of 25, which is roughly a D grade. If you fail to focus on the argument in the article, but your answer is valid, then you'll be limited to 10 out of 25, again, which is a D grade. The extract question in ideology papers, paper 3, is a slightly different animal. You need to make sure you refer to the key thinkers you've been taught, not what they said, note what they said and why they said it about that topic, and the context will help. You've got 6 or 5 main key thinkers for each ideology you've studied, and there are plenty of other relevant people. You don't need to draw on all 6 or all 5 of them, or the other ideologies, if it's a liberalist question, or their key thinkers, but it's useful to explain your argument. For example, we use Hobbes as a point to contrast Locke, and there is therefore crossover between conservatism and liberalism via neoliberalism. And neoliberalism is also considered part of conservatism as well. And there is an example on there for you to look through. So this is your party funding, and you need to read through that extract from The Guardian in 2016 and analyse and evaluate and compare the arguments over a cap on individual donations to the political parties. Obviously, this is huge bone of contention at the moment. Okay, so you've got this historical extract there, but you've also got the latest Tory sleaze scandal of the £3 million donors. Now, we've already looked at cash for honours, but obviously that seems to still be a thing in the Conservative Party donors, where they're getting made lords for donating certain amounts of money to the party. And then we come to section C. This is the essay question, in which you're required to analyse for 25 marks and evaluate a statement using your knowledge and understanding of the issue under discussion. This might draw from different sections of the spec, requiring you to identify and substantiate parallels, connections, similarities and differences between aspects of politics studied. The answer should be taken in the form of a structured and balanced argument, maintaining a sustained line of reasoning, communication with relevance, clarity and coherence, and leading to a reasoned conclusion. The 25-mark essay question for comparative politics in paper 2, section C, will require you to make explicit comparisons between the United Kingdom and the United States in both government and politics. So this is a classic essay. It's very similar to A-level history for those who study. And you need to have a nice, assertive introduction which gives flag to your conclusion. You should have 3 to 4 clear arguments supported with precise evidence, using point evidence evaluation paragraphs, using the language in the question when making your point to ensure you remain focused. Try to be succinct and avoid superfluous phrases like some people argue. Make sure your essay is roughly balanced between an argument and a counter-argument. Be synoptic, make links. You do not need lots of them, but you do need evidence that you've been synoptic to achieve a top mark. and you must end your essay with a clear conclusion which answers the question that has been asked. Things to look out for is a discriminator word in the question. There have been few significant changes to the British Constitution since 1987, as an example. Parliament is not an effective check on the executive. And paper 2, you do not need to separate the UK and the USA. You need to give a balance between the treatment of both countries. In paper 3, you must refer to your core thinkers from the feminist topic, and you must also refer to women that appear in liberalism as well. You will be crazy not to. Webb and Luxemburg are also very useful for feminism, as are Marx and Engels and Mao. You may even wish to draw on Rand. You can draw on statistical data from paper 1 and paper 2 and other appropriate links to feminism, for example, equal rights legislation or reform, and the data on representation. And a good example for the 25 mark essay question is: Parliament is not an effective check on the executive. Analyse and evaluate this statement for 25 marks. Now, this PowerPoint is available to you on Google Classroom, and if you have any questions or anything, please come and see either myself or Mr. Brown, and we'll be more than happy to assist.